Month Farm Report. My name. Hi, everyone, and welcome to this month's audio production town hall. So glad all of you could join us. Every month, you'll find us here talking about all kinds of topics related to audio production, from making records to sound and film for video games, and so much more. We hope you plan to join us regularly, but if you do miss a session, you should be able to find an archive recording at the same link. Today, we're going to talk about 6 plugins, audio mixing plugins, that we think you should be taking advantage of. 3 of them are already in your Launchbox goodies. We're also going to talk about 3 absolutely free plugins that you might have checked out, maybe have never heard of, but we think it's something you'll really like. My name is John Curtis. I am your department chair. I'm also the course director for Advanced Mixing Techniques later in the program. Joining me today is our course director for Vocal Techniques and Neighborhood Pro Tools guru, Mr. Ed Tinley. Ed, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, John?
Fantastic. All right, so Ed, I think you have 3 plugins that they already get in their Launchbox.
Yes, I do.
That we think would be really fantastic, and I'm looking forward to seeing what these are.
All right, so with your Launchbox, you have a Pro Tools Ultimate subscription. I'm going to look at a couple of the Avid Pro plugins that come in with your subscription. If you don't have these installed, the Avid Pro compressor, the Avid Pro limiter, I believe there's a multi-band compressor and an expander gate as well, 4 plugins in the package. You can get them through the Avid link if you want to download them through the Avid link program, or you can go to your my.avid.com account. Make sure you sign in with your email that's associated with your Pro Tools Ultimate account. Click on View My Products. Oh, it's making me re-log in. Sorry, 1 second. We waited too long.
Make sure to show everybody your password.
There you go. Everybody knows it now. If I can get it right on the first time. Live television, you gotta like it. All right, well anyway, if you log in, you're gonna go to Pro Tools Ultimate, click on that, click on View Download Links, and then scroll down almost nearly all the way down to where the audio plugins are, and it's the Avid Pro Bundle is what you want to install. If you're using the Avid link, you can also install it through that app as well. But I'm going to focus first on the Avid Pro compressor. Why I want to show you this compressor is, A, it sounds really good. B, it's probably the cleanest sounding compressor I have in my arsenal. And what I mean by clean is that you can compress really hard. You can really hit the signal hard without actually hearing the compression. And it doesn't add a lot of harmonics or any sort of unwanted sound or tone shift to your source material. And it sounds especially clean on vocals. The interface can be a little intimidating if you're not quite really used to using compression yet. There are a lot of bells and whistles on this, so let's go ahead and go through some of them.
Real quick though,
yes.
Just for anybody who's not familiar, what exactly is a compressor? What does it do, and what would they do?
Great question. I'm getting ahead of the game here. So compressor, the basic definition of it is you set a threshold. So if your audio peaks go above the threshold, the compressor is gonna push those peaks back down. It's gonna use gain reduction so those peaks don't jump over the threshold more than you set. So thus it's gonna tame the loud peaks in your source, and it's gonna make some of the quieter material seem louder. So with a compressed signal, it's gonna seem a little more loud on average. You're not gonna have such a dynamic variance in your peak sources. So with vocals being such a peak-based signal, meaning it's really dynamic, when you have a singer, you're going to have a lot of variance between some really loud peaks and some very soft peaks. So we can make it easier on ourselves to mix, to compress that signal a little bit. So some of the basics that you're going to find on most compressors, again, the threshold, that's kind of our most important parameter here that we'll use to set the overall amount of compression. The second one that you're going to see just about on any compressor is the ratio. That is the amount of gain reduction once you go over that threshold. So for right now, I have mine set to 3 to 1. So for every dB I go over the threshold, it is going to compress that by 3 dB. So with a vocal, a lot of times, especially a lead vocal, if I don't want to overcompress, which is something you want to stay away from, I typically start with a low ratio, 2 to 1, 3 to 1, 4 to 1, something in that range. Two other parameters that you're going to see quite often on a compressor are the attack and the release knobs. Attack and release, they're both in milliseconds. So right now I have a 5 millisecond attack, which is kind of a slower attack, maybe medium slow for a vocal setting, meaning 5 milliseconds will go by before it starts to compress the signal. And then once the signal goes below the threshold, after 30 milliseconds, it'll release and stop compressing. But I think most of you kind of have a basic idea of compression. So if I just solo up this vocal really quick. Here it comes.
It's not about you. Yeah.
So that's the setting with the current compression. If I turn it off, here's the uncompressed vocal.
It's not about you. Yeah.
So you're probably thinking, wow, I don't really hear a huge difference. And that's a good thing, because this is what I'm saying about being a clean sounding compressor. It's really transparent. It's not messing with any of the harmonics. So if we look at the signal and we look at the meters here,
It's not about you. Yeah.
we see an input signal on the left and an output signal on the right. And if we look at the meter here in this, this graph next to the ratio, you'll see gain reduction, the amount of compression that's occurring.
It's not about you. Yeah.
And in the scheme of things, I'm hitting about 6 to 9 dB of gain reduction, which in a lot of other plugins, that's a heavy compression setting. That's quite a bit of compression. But on this plugin, we're not hearing a lot of it. And why is that? A, I have a slower attack going, and I have a pretty fast release. So it's grabbing onto the peak, and it's letting go pretty quick. So it's keeping most of the transients intact. And as I stated before, this is a very transparent compressor. If we try 9 or 10 dB on another plugin, we're really going to hear the artifacts of compression from that. A few other bells and whistles on here is we have a knee setting, so like your K-N-E-E, your knee. That is how quick you'll achieve your ratio of compression. So when it starts compressing, it doesn't hit that 3 to 1 ratio right away. It slopes into that 3 dB gain reduction for every dB it goes over. The knee will determine how quickly you get to that 3 to 1. So we have terms like hard knee compressor or soft knee compressor. On this plugin, I generally leave this alone. I'll leave this set at right in the middle at 15 dB. And this other knob on the right here, the depth knob, this is a really cool feature of this plugin. If you're new to compression and you want to make sure that you don't overcompress and kind of destroy your tone, it has a depth knob on it. In depth, what that means is the maximum amount of gain reduction that it's going to allow. So right now with it off, it'll allow for as much gain reduction as I can get out of it. But if I say turn this up to like -5 dB, with that setting, no matter what, it's not going to compress more than 5 dB. So if I hit play and we look at our gain reduction meter again,
It's not about you. Yeah.
notice it wouldn't go any farther than 5 dB. Where when I had that off, we were definitely hitting 9 or 10 dB on the gain reduction meter.
It's not about you. Yeah.
So again, for the newer mixer, the newer engineer, if you don't want to overcompress, you can set this depth knob to make sure it doesn't compress by more than a set gain reduction. And what's wrong with overcompressing a signal? Sometimes it's needed. I mean, there's no real rules in audio mixing, but if you do overcompress, there can definitely be some artifacts that come along with it. One thing would be sibilance. Some of the S's and F's and CH's, those harsh sounds, can become more apparent, especially with a slower attack. If you're going to run some bass instruments through this, or a whole mix, or a kick drum, and you start overcompressing, the first thing you're going to lose is that low-end response, those low-end frequencies. You can start to make things sound more narrow or filtered with heavy compression. So again, if you're just getting into this, and I remember back when I was in audio school, compression was kind of a mystery to me for a while. It took me a little while to figure it out. So if you're not real certain or trusting your ear quite yet, maybe utilize this depth knob, use it to like 4 or 5 dB to make sure you don't grossly overcompress the signal.
Ed, we have a question.
Sure.
We have some friends visiting from music. I wasn't able to find anything on my end.
If with music production, if part of your Launchbox is the Pro Tools Ultimate subscription, you definitely get these plugins along with it. Again, log into your my.avid account, my.avid.com. Go to My Products, then click on Download Links. Then there'll be a huge list of all the available audio plugins, ARA2 plugins, MIDI effects. But if you scroll all the way down to where the audio plugins are, you should see the Pro Bundle. I think it's called 2022 point something, like 2022.8. That was the last update. It was actually about 4 years ago. But hopefully, yeah, if you have Pro Tools Ultimate, you will have this as part of your package.
The 3 I'm going to talk about are absolutely free, and I'll be providing the link, so anybody can have it.
Okay. But welcome, people from music production. Definitely all audio production students have it. I'll have to get back to you on whether music production does as well. So this Pro compressor, one other cool bell and whistle that's on this is in the bottom center section, we have a sidechain EQ available to us. Now, when you sidechain a compressor and you apply a EQ curve to it, so if I take this little button here and start dragging it to the right, I'm inducing a high-pass filter. If you don't understand what a high-pass filter is, that means whatever frequency I set it to. If I set this to 150 hertz, that means anything below 150 hertz is not being sent to the compression circuit. 150 hertz will pass through the plugin. If you have 150 hertz and below in your sound source, it'll just go straight through the plugin. It won't actually be sent to the compression circuit. So we won't be compressing anything below 150 hertz. Why is this cool, or why is this important? With vocals, this can be really cool, again, to preserve the low end of our voice. If we don't want to overcompress the low end frequencies and make the voice sound a bit thinner, especially if we're compressing really hard. Or another awesome use of this is you'll see there's different symbols here. The one it defaults to is high pass, there's low pass, but even better yet is the band pass here. And we can use that to have our own built-in de-esser. So now if I take the little circle here and drag it, if it will let me, there we go. Over to say, so since it's a de-esser, with de-essing, that's more of a single band compression. We can set a frequency. So if I bring this, say, right around, say like 7 or 8K, and then we have the Q as well, which we know Q is another symbol or a word for bandwidth. If I start increasing the Q, it's going to be a smaller bandwidth, so I can compress just 7.4K. Or if I make it wider, I can compress around 7.4K. So when I do that, so now you see that black area expanding. So I'm kind of focused on between 5 and 10K, and that's where a lot of sibilant material appears for a singer, the S's and the F's. Now, if you're not sure, there's a little speaker icon at the top right. We can solo this up. Now it's flashing. Now if I hit play, we are just hearing that range of frequency.
It's not about you. Yeah.
Like I said, if I solo that, there we go. I'm sorry. I hit it on the wrong one. If we go to the one more to the right there, That's the right, the fourth symbol over there is the one that I wanted.
It's not about you. Yeah.
And so you can hear what frequency of this that you're affecting. So that's, you got a built-in de-esser that you can utilize.
It's not about you. Yeah.
Oh, you know what? I got it. Here we go. Okay. One more time with that, my bad. Operator error as usual. When you're doing something wrong, it's usually the user. Here we go. I had the wrong track.
It's not about you.
There we go, folks. So I can
It's not about you.
I can find the most sibilant area of that frequency range and then unsolo it. And now when I start applying the threshold, it's going to focus on compressing those frequencies.
It's not about you. Yeah.
So if I bring it down too much, it'll sound like we've almost given her a speech impediment.
It's not about you. Yeah.
So that'd be way too much. Let's go ahead and bring that up.
It's not about you. Yeah.
And so with de-essing, or again, if you're new with compression, I always recommend maybe just what I call kissing the meter or just tickling the meter, just making it move just a couple, 2-3 dB. Start with a light setting there and then apply it to your mix and see if you want more from that point on. So this is the Pro compressor. Again, a very, very powerful compressor. I'm gonna go ahead and turn off the side chain. I'll just set it to a quick little setting here. I'll copy it over to my other vocal.
It's not about you. Yeah.
Maybe a little too much.
It's not about you. Yeah.
So I had that a little less than what I had at the initial setting.
It's not about you.
I'll go ahead and copy that over to my other chorus vocal. If you do an option drag in Pro Tools, you can bring that over. Copy that down to the other track. Actually, I already got that on there. All right. All thumbs today.
It's not about you. Yeah. Like the whole world revolves around you. It's not about you.
Command click each one of those. We can bypass them.
It's not about you. Yeah.
You can hear them jumping out a little more than they
Yeah,
were
it's
before.
a nice subtle like pull up on that. It's good.
But it's kind of evening out the level, and it's not bringing out any unwanted artifacts, no extra sibilants. It's not adding any harmonics or any sort of, tube style emulation to it.
It's not about you. Yeah.
And again, 910 dB, which is a heavy amount of compression. So that's the first plugin I would check out if you're going to play with the Pro bundle. Another compressor we can look at really quick. If I go to my lead vocal on the verses here, everybody that's in audio production, can't speak for the music production folks, but audio production, you have the Slate Digital plugins that you can install. If you go to slatedigital.com, download the Slate Digital app, which I think is right here. Slate Digital Connect is what it's called. If you download that, enter in your code from your Launchbox email, you can get all these plugins installed. And the first thing we'll just look at really quick is called the Virtual Mix Rack. So if you're in Pro Tools and you search for VIRT, the Virtual Mix Rack will come up. And it looks like this. And why they call it a mix rack is that you can put several plugins into one insert. I can have a compressor here. I can have an EQ. I can add an enhancer. After that, you can basically build a vocal chain or an insert chain within one insert. So you don't have to use multiple plugins. You can have it all in one box.
You can rearrange these, obviously.
You can rearrange the order of them, by just clicking and dragging. You can turn them on and off by hitting the little power button at the top of each module. There's a solo button as well if you want to solo just that effect, if you have like 5 or 6 of these in your rack. And if you hit the X button, you can remove them. There's also, sometimes with default, I don't think I have mine set this way. Let's check really quick. But yeah, virtual mix rack. when it first boots up, it has a whole bunch of plugins already installed. So if you don't want that, there's a trash can up in the top center that you can hit and get rid of them all, and then start dragging the ones you want from your list. Now, the list is pretty extensive. I haven't counted, but there's probably 50, 60, 70 plugins. There is a search function up here if you know that you want, say, the FG Stress, which is their version of the distressor. You could type it in and search for it. You can also filter them by type. You can hit Dyne for dynamics or all the compressors that are in here. Look at that, whole bunch of compressors. EQs, the different EQs, FX. So you can go by type. But I'm just going to focus on this very first compressor they give you. I'm going to go back to my other track really quick. And this is their Opto compressor. Now, the Opto is probably the polar opposite of what the Pro compressor from Avid was. Avid, that one's very clean, very digital, very transparent. This one has a little more sauce to it, or it's going to shift the tone of the vocal a bit, hopefully in a pleasant way. Now, why is it called an opto compressor? Because if you actually have an actual hardware unit, there's a photo optic sensor inside of the compression circuit. There's like a little, an actual light bulb, a light, LED light that goes brighter and darker. And the photo optic cell senses that change in light. It's an old technology. It's probably right around from, it's pre-World War II, I believe. But it's a slower, smoother attack on the compressor. These tend to work nice for vocals if it's not a super aggressive song. So if it's a real, you have a hip hop track and it's a real aggressive rapper that is kind of spitfiring a lot of different syllables, this might not be the compressor for you. But on this one, in the verses, it's definitely a bit of a smooth delivery. The thing I like about an opto, it's a very simple setup. Most opto compressors are actually even simpler than this one. You typically just get peak reduction and an output gain. Now the gain knob, a lot of people get this wrong. This is output gain. This is after the compressor. So you do not turn this gain up to drive the amount of compression into it. You would mess with this peak reduction, or this is the threshold for you. If you want more compression, you're going to turn this to the right. A lot of optos don't give you much choice with ratio. Most of them are 3-to-1 or 10-to-1. You can actually surf in between the ratios on the Slate. That's what I like about a lot of these Slate plugins. They kind of update them to have some more modern features. There is a speed knob as well. The speed is the attack speed of the opto compressor, which usually they're a bit slower. And on most optos, again, you don't have attack and release settings. You have a few tone versions here that you can mess with. I'm just going to leave it on flat right now. And one thing I forgot to mention on the Pro compressor, and it's the same on the Slate compressor here, it has a mix knob, which that's one of my favorite features of most modern compressors, most plugins these days, is you have a mix between compressed signal and uncompressed signal. Back in our day, we used to call that parallel compression. You used to have to send on a console to a compressor, bring it back on another channel, and you'd mix in the compressed signal with the uncompressed. Well, now you can do it right on the actual plugin itself. So right now, I'll start with 100%, which it says wet. That means 100% compressed. The Avid Pro plugin had this feature as well. I just forgot to demonstrate it. So now with this on the lead vocal of the verse, let me make sure I'm in a good spot here. Oh, the small screen here messing with me.
It shows in every little thing that you do. Yeah, yeah.
That's a pretty light setting.
You just can't keep it undercover.
So on an opto-style compressor like this, with this meter looks like an analog VU meter, meaning it's a needle on a graph. And when it's compression or gain reduction, the needle will be all the way to the right. And the more you see it move to the left, if you look at the graph, that's the amount of gain reduction. So again, I'm just tickling, or just barely moving this needle.
It shows in every little thing that you do.
We're doing about between 1 and 3 dB of gain reduction. Now, if I go ahead, maybe go to a little louder part of this track, if it'll let me. A little louder.
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
3 dB. It's a slower attack setting. Doesn't sound completely overcompressed or anything. Let's go ahead and kick on some of this gain reduction. Let's get into that 6 to 10 dB range that we had with the Avid earlier.
Believe me when I said I've had enough. I'll be all right. Be all right.
Okay, so that's with some heavier compression. Now I'm going to hit bypass. This is without it.
Believe me when I said I've had enough. I'll be all right. Be all right.
We're hearing a little more variance in the dynamics. I'll kick this on.
Believe me when I said I've had enough. I'll be all right. Be all right.
Here it's sounding a little more muted. We're hearing a little what we call pumping from the compressor because it's a heavier compression. The release is kind of having some problems, so we kind of hear it pump. We kind of hear some sort of some artifacts from it because we're compressing too hard. We're also losing a lot of top end with it compressing this hard.
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
Yeah, the believe me when I said was really low, then started releasing on the had enough line after it. So I'm going to back that off. Up, other way.
Believe me when I said I've had enough. Believe me when I said I've had enough. Believe me when I said I've had enough.
That feels about like right about the sweet spot. We're getting a decent amount of gain reduction. We're not hearing any pumping. We're not hearing any tone shift here. So on the bottom here, we have some different tone settings. I'm on flat. Why don't I move it to airy? So airy is probably adding a little bit of top end frequency boost after the compression.
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
Here's without it. Now a lot of this is subtle and might be a little harder to hear over the stream. You probably want to experiment with these at home on your headphones.
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
There is a slight variance there. And you can add more of it with this little, there's a little screw to the left of it, you know, because this interface is trying to be sort of true to the old form. If I turn that up, how about we'll go with 200% instead of 100%?
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
Without it?
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
Yeah, I can definitely hear some high frequency added there.
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
Again, it's pretty subtle. And if we go ahead and maybe dig in a little harder with the compressor, if I bring the peak reduction up.
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
Now that's a little harder than I probably normally set it, but if I bring that mix knob back, maybe I'll go 70%. So it's 70% compressed, 30% uncompressed.
Believe me when I said I've had enough. I'll be all right.
That'd be a little too much still. Why don't I go even Steven, 50 and 50?
Believe me when I said I've had enough. I'll be all right. Be all right.
There, that way we don't hear it pumping as much and we're not creating any artifacts. So let's see, one more thing I'll look at really quick. Again, this is another slate compressor, and this is not part of the virtual mix rack. This is another install called the virtual bus compressors. If you get these installed and you type in VBC, you have 4 different ones. Well, 3 different compressors, and you can actually put them into a rack and use them in series. This first one, the one that I booted up, is the FG Gray. This emulates a famous SSL style stereo compressor. I don't really know how much it sounds like the SSL. It doesn't really sound like one to me. But actually, I kind of like it again because it's pretty transparent and it's not grabby sounding, meaning, again, it's not going to hit the transients too hard or it's not going to pump too hard if you set it right. The other 2 in there is the FG Mu, a variable mu compressor, which is this one does induce a lot of tone shift. It's supposed to be like a Fairchild compressor, which the Fairchild, I can't remember, I think it has like 11 tubes in it and all kinds of electronics and transformers. So when you kick on the FG Mu, you definitely are going to hear a high-end presence bump to your whole mix immediately. And the third one down is the FG Red, which is a famous Focusrite red compressor that got big in the late 80s, early 90s. Back in my R&B days, almost every R&B mix I was ever associated with, all the background vocals would go through one of these. So there's 3 different types, 3 different flavors. But I will focus on this FG Gray. So SSL style bus compressor. Let's go ahead and unbypass it. Lights up. It has the same VU type meter, so it's sitting right at 0 right now. So this is across my entire mix. Now, if you're not sure what to set these to, there are presets. This is the classic Mix 1, which with SSL compressors, you usually see them used in one of 2 ways. Sort of a slower attack and an automatic release, which that's what it's set to right now. Notice the auto button is lit up. So that means the compressor is going to handle the release for you. Otherwise, if you turn that off, you do have a release knob. Threshold, again, to set the overall amount of compression. Now, with compressing your entire mix, I go with the lowest ratio usually possible, like 2 to 1 is usually a good place to be. Again, we see that HPF on here, high pass filter. That is our side chain. Many times on a mix, if there's a really strong kick drum, bass drum presence, and I don't want to compress it the same as the rest of the frequencies, I'll go ahead and turn this up. So I'll go ahead and turn this up to say like 75 hertz. And that way the kick drum's not going to dominate the compressor here. Got makeup gain after it, and we have a mix knob again, so we can mix between compressed and uncompressed. So let's see how heavy I'm compressing this.
Believe me when I said I've had enough.
That's pretty heavy. I'm going to back off that threshold a little bit.
Believe me when I said I've had enough. I'll be alright, be alright. You know it feels like I'm in trouble with you. Yeah, yeah. It shows in every little thing.
When the big background vocal stab comes in.
You say it feels like we're in love.
I was maybe compressing 2 to 3 dB, and that's probably almost the loudest part of the song, or at least the loudest impact where all those vocals come in. And again, I'm emphasizing not over compressing, because if we do, we're going to lose low end response. Things are going to start pumping. You're going to hear artifacts. Now, if I put that in auto,
You say it feels like we're in love.
that sounds pretty smooth. The other way I see this used a lot is we go with the slowest attack possible, turn off auto, and the fastest release. So this is about the most uncompressed setting you can have, or the least amount of compression, we should say. So slowest attack, so as much of that transient goes through before it starts gain reduction, and as soon as it goes below that threshold again, it releases the compression. So this should be a little less compressed.
You say it feels like we're.
Not really. Let's go ahead and back off. Oh, I turned it the wrong way. My bad. That was a slow release. No, fast release, slow attack. That is right. Let's go ahead and bring the threshold up a little bit.
You say it feels like we're in love. But that's not right. That's not right. Nah. Believe me when I said I've had enough.
More of a subtle compression. I think I actually preferred the auto release on this one with the medium attack, which was surprising to me. I thought it would compress less the other way around.
You say it feels like we're in love.
Kind of handles those releases a little smoother. We don't hear quite as much pumping. But again, if you're experimenting with some compression across the whole mix, this is a good plugin to start with because it's pretty transparent. It's not overly powerful. You shouldn't mess up or destroy your mix with it. And again, going with a low ratio with a slower attack and maybe the auto release on it. So that's 3 plugins: your Avid Pro compressor, your Opto compressor from Slate Digital, and then this is another Slate Digital, the FG Gray, the English spelling, Grey, which again is supposed to be like an SSL, but doesn't completely sound like an SSL to me, but I do like this plugin. So that's my 3. I'll hand it back to you, John.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ed. Wow. I think we might have 6 might have been a bit much. You just took us on a nice
man,
compressor
I
journey.
ate up a ton of time.
That's absolutely, no, that's awesome. That's so awesome. So my 3, really, 2 of them are just metering plugins. And metering is, I'll give everybody I'll show everybody what I'm going to do and then the links, and then I'll try to get some demos here in a second. But metering is really, really important, especially with most mixing. And probably the #1 plugin I recommend to my students, in fact, we start off immediately, and they see it in other courses too, is Voxengo Span. I was turned on to this probably over a decade ago. And the fact that it's free is just a testament to Voxengo's commitment to the industry. So what this is going to do is help you analyze your entire mix. In fact, that's probably the place you want to put it the most, is after your processing on your master, excuse me, or stereo output. So it's not so much a replacement for what you're hearing. Always use your ears, but Span has come in so handy. You're listening to a mix and you're like, what? Something sounds really weird. And you could go through and try to solo individual channels to find out what it is. Sometimes being able to go to a frequency spectrum meter and look and see, like, there's just a weird peak or a dip somewhere, and you're like, oh, I bet that's this, judging by where it is frequency-wise. And I'll show you an example here in a second. But yeah, go to voxengo.com/product/span. And again, it's absolutely free. It works for audio units, AAX, VST, cross-platform. So highly, highly recommended, and definitely something you should be using. Now, really quickly, if you go to the Tube of Views and our guru, Dan Worrell, you haven't checked out Dan Worrell's videos, man's a genius.
Great YouTuber, yep.
7 years ago, he produced this video called basically Mixing with Your Eyes. Ian Shepard introduced me, and mastering engineer Ian Shepard introduced me to Span way back when. I kind of used his settings and changed them. I changed my settings to Dan's because they're brilliant. And in this quick video, he will walk you through his settings for Span and how to slow down everything, smooth it out a little bit, and even be able to show you mid-side with stereo if you're kind of going over. So you can just search YouTube, Dan Worrell, WORRALL, and just type in Span or Voxengo Span. It'll probably take you right to the video. Now, the other meter that I want to talk about is from our friends at TB Pro Audio over in Germany, and it's called DP meter. This is a really good level meter, especially when you're dealing with a final mix and you have to measure for loudness or loudness units and measure true peak. You can also use this in an RMS mode if you prefer, but we typically use EBU mode, which is the European Broadcast Union. It's their loudness meter. I have all my students download this because in our final class or next to final class, we're trying to get them prepped for mixing and preparing things for streaming services. And having a really good loudness true peak meter is definitely something that you need. This is one of the things that would be after Span on my final, insert chain, because I want to see what the level looks like post-processing. And because Span is just analyzing frequency, it's not going to change anything audio-wise. And I'll show this in a second as to how it works. And you can measure integrated loudness, which is your song from beginning to end. See your true peaks. You can even do short-term loudness if you need to measure a verse or a solo for getting into what are called microdynamics. But super handy, and again, for free, and it's been free for at least a decade. Again, just a really, really good thing to have. The last thing I'm going to talk about is a channel strip. And this is free from a company called Analog Obsession. Analog Obsession, I believe, is based in Turkey, And whoever is coding these plugins, because I think it's just one person, they're brilliant. Now, I'm a big fan of channel strips. I think channel strips are a fantastic thing to have. If you're using Pro Tools, the Air or Avid channel strip that's built in is really great. Has everything you kind of need right there. And the beauty of a channel strip is it's one plugin that kind of gives you multiple functions. Typically like an EQ, a compressor, there might be other functionality built in. There's a special part to the Analog Obsession plugins that I'm gonna let you listen to here in a second that I really, really like. And especially when you're learning, even as a pro, it's a really, really cool thing. So, I have here Logic, and I just have a simple, drum kit. Do we have audio? Yes? Okay. I don't hear anything up here, so. So let me show you Span really quickly. So, I'm gonna boost this up a little bit. So what Span is showing us, and the beauty of it, is I can actually hover my cursor at over any point. So it looks like my kick drum, and if you look in the top here, is about center frequency is around 55 hertz. That's a good thing to figure out, what if I need to boost or cut the center frequency of the signal? You want to see the extended range of the bass, around 120. But you can go through and measure, or at least look at particular sections just to see what that frequency range is. This is good for training your ears as well, to listen to like, okay, where's the clicky part of my kick drum? Why do my cymbals sound really trashy? Well, maybe there's a whole lot of top end. It's just a really, really good thing to have. You can also measure, in this case I'm looking at mid-side here, but you can also measure in stereo for left and right. It actually has true peak capability, which is, I will check my system settings. Give me 1 second here. Apparently we have audio problems. I think it's okay with me. I don't know what happened. Even if you can't hear it, it's fine. At least you can kind of see what's going on. Might not work with my channel strip though. Do you want me to try unplugging the USB and plugging it back in? Yeah, hang on 1 second. Sorry for any pops that pop up. I heard a click.
Good sign.
Okay, output devices here. Let's see.
Hey,
There we go. Cool.
Yay.
All right, so next, let me go ahead and turn on and show you DP meter here. So, as I'm playing this, and this is set for EBU mode, so loudness, and I stopped it. It's okay. Reference level is set for about -14 dBLU, but you can see in just the short time that I played it, the short-term loudness is around -21.5 LUFS, and we can also see what the true peaks are. For a short section, that's probably the most you'd be looking at, and mostly you're going to be measuring, if you're going to measure an entire track, you're going to be playing it from the beginning to the end. And when you do, and that's also a great time to take a break, that's usually what I do while the meter is measuring, I can always come back and then take a look at what my integrated loudness for that track is and where its true peaks are. And this will tell me if I'm coming in too hot, if I need to do some reduction, whether that's maybe back off on a little bit of compression or gain or both. And usually how my limiter is working, because that limiter is what's going to be controlling true peaks. And very much like Ed, I just want it to like tickle, the peaks that go over. But sometimes I might need to be a little more aggressive to try to take care of any true peaks that are going over. Typically -1 is what we want. Sure. Awesome. All right, so I highly recommend Span. I highly recommend DP meter. Even if you don't understand it completely with DP meter, there are presets, factory, anything LU, maybe LU -16, LU -14 is probably perfect. and at least kind of gives you an idea of where you want to aim for as far as mixing for streaming services. And this is kind of all over the place. Typically, it's somewhere between about -16 to -14. That's what the majors kind of normalize to. They can go a little bit over too. It can
Yeah, I
be somewhere
think,
between -14 to -12.
Your Spotify and YouTube are about -14, -16 for Apple Music. But then if you're on, Instagram or Facebook, it's going to be much louder than that. So it varies. I guess we should tell them what a LUFS unit is, right?
Well, it's a way of measuring that's basically more attuned to the way we hear, as opposed to kind of like a standard, I mean, a dB is a dB, but a loudness unit is based on kind of an average of the way our ears hear. So when you're measuring something integrated, it's getting an idea of how the whole mix is going to sound. Where this came from, not to sidebar too much, is from television commercials. You would be watching a movie and suddenly this television commercial would be 3 times louder than what you're watching to, so you're racing for the remote to try to turn it down. By the Calm Act, it was basically said, yeah, you have to keep everything at a certain level, so it wouldn't, you wouldn't be racing for the remote every time a commercial came on. It doesn't affect streaming. I don't think it affected cable, if I'm right. It's just broadcast, so your mileage may vary. Anyway, audio engineers went, hey, that's a cool thing. Can we use it? And wound up putting it into, especially for the upcoming streaming services. And now it's used all the time. If you turn on sound check or replay gain, you're basically normalizing to a loudness level, a LUFS level. All righty. How are we doing on time? Have I got a couple minutes? Fantastic. All right. Trying to make some space here. So this is Chanev from Analog Obsession. This is a Neve-based channel strip and kind of an unusual one. And it kind of goes in order. We have like the infamous 72 mic pre at the beginning. That goes into a de-esser, which then goes into an EQ, goes into the compressor at the bottom, and finally a limiter. After that, it goes into a tape stage. So we actually have a drive amount and an output. Now, the 1972 preamp is, let's just say, a very coveted thing in the audio industry. They sound amazing. They're very beautiful. Also unbelievably expensive. This does a really good job of replicating it. And like I said, with channel strips, one of the coolest things about having channel strips is having multiple devices in one plugin. So you could easily build your own channel strip. You could assign, an EQ in one slot and then a compressor after that, maybe another EQ compressor, whatever you want. But then you have multiple plugins. And unless you can save those as kind of a group, which I only know of a couple of DAWs that'll let you do that. If you want to copy that across multiple channels, you're doing the option drag thing times however many plugins and however many channels. If you're using a channel strip, it's just one thing you can option drag or copy to multiple channels. It makes working a lot more efficient, at least to me. Here's the coolest thing I love, and this is actually with every single Analog Obsession plugin. They build basically gain structure into all their plugins. There's automatic gain compensation built into this. So if I play this drum track and I start cranking up the mic gain, you can hear the effect. That's the original. That's full mic gain. But notice the overall level hasn't changed at all. It's automatically adjusting the output gain for you. This comes in really handy, especially with a tape drive. You want a little tape fuzz in there to give it some drive, fantastic. But you're never pushing the output gain into the point of, oh my, it's too loud. Now, sure Ed will attest back in the old days, when we were doing this with hardware, you had two hands on the knobs, one on the input and one on the output. And you were bringing the input up while bringing the output down, because that was the only way you could keep any kind of manageable gain structure working to get that sound. Having software do that for you automatically, especially in something that's free, chef's kiss. It's just really nice. Wonderful. And lets you experiment without really having to worry about things getting too loud, because psychoacoustically, to your ears, when things are louder, they sound better. It's just how we work. So having some objectiveness in there of like, all right, if I'm gonna crank up, you know, a bunch of high-end EQ, I can hear the difference of what that's doing without just going, it's louder, it's better. So this is a really, really fun thing to play with. And AO has, I think, 3 or 4 different channel strips you can play with. They're all really, really, really well done. And if your DAW has a channel strip, fantastic. Logic doesn't have one. I don't think Ableton has one. There are plenty out there. But in my experiments with this, it just sounds fantastic. And just having automatic gain compensation, especially when you're playing with things like EQ into compression or pushing the pre's and getting a little bit of tape drive in there, having all that leveled out for you without having to worry about it, that is a great way to find out about sound and listen to it without constantly going, oh yeah, I just made it louder, so it sounds great. It might be totally destroying the signal, and you just can't tell because it's gotten too loud.
I thought one cool thing is when you were doing the tape drive, which tape drive, that's compression, that's pushing the peaks down. When he turned it all the way up, you could hear a lot of the low end go away from the kick drum. You know, so again, when you overcompress, low frequency response is usually one of the first things that you start to lose.
All right. So I kind of rushed through that thinking we were running out of time. I think we still got some time left. You want to talk about anything else? You got a secret plugin you want to talk about?
I guess one other, since we were talking about LUFS and loudness units, this is an actual limiter. This is the same.
My bad, sorry.
You guys want to switch back over to my screen. We had the Pro compressor. This is the Pro limiter from Avid. So this is the same package, the Pro bundle. Has the skin, the UI has the same look to it. So if we're talking about loudness units, this doesn't have quite all the extensive information readout that the DP meter that John showed, but it does. This does show you an integrated loudness meter. It'll show you your loudness range. It'll show you true peak, and it shows short term as well. Pretty simple plugin. You put this across your whole mix. So your limiter is typically going to be the last audio plugin in your mixing chain. Yes, you can put the meters after that, but those aren't doing anything to the sound. So typically on a mix bus, I'll have my mix compressor first. Maybe I'll do some tape emulation after that. Maybe some EQ after that. And then the very last thing in your chain, your mix chain, will be the limiter. And as John was saying earlier, the first thing we should do with the limiter is we should set that output ceiling. Because these are known as brick wall limiters, which is, it's just a compressor. But a limiter means it's a higher ratio. Usually limiting we consider like 20 to 1.
Anything over 10 to 1.
Anything over 10 to 1 really, I think, is the classical definition of limiting. So 20 to 1, 50 to 1, infinity to 1. You can really set these, there's not a ratio to set here, but basically what this limiter means, it's no matter what you set the ceiling to or the output threshold, it's not going to let any peaks go above that. It shouldn't, in theory. So this is measured in dB true peak. This just means the peaks of the dB full scale. So typically for music, we're going to set that to -1. Andrew Sheps, I think I saw, had his at -0.1 because he has to just be a little louder, than everybody else.
He is loud. He's one louder.
But I think the typical standard you'll see if you Google this -1 dB true peak. So that's the first thing with any limiter, digital limiter for your mix. If you're going to set LUF levels, make sure we set that to -1, making sure that no peak goes above that -1 threshold. Now, this is a very simple setup. It has a character knob that I'm not going to mess with. It's a soft limiter, so again, that's going to emulate like either a tube saturation or a tape saturation. It can make it so you can round off some of these peaks so you can actually get a little bit more of a loudness contour going. There is a release. I just have this on auto. 99% of the time when I use a limiter, I have this on auto release. I don't typically mess with the release on a limiter. But it's real simple. If you just bring down the threshold, either the more you bring it down, the louder your mix is going to get. And what I like, if we look at the input meter, you see that gold line going down, or green line?
It's gold.
That's gold. Okay, I'm kind of colorblind. So bringing that down, that controls the threshold as well. So what I like telling students is if we're going to shoot for, say, the generic -14 LUFs, if I hit play here, and you'll want to check different sections of the song, you know, your verse versus your chorus, whatever. I think the chorus is a little louder, so why don't we go to the chorus?
Yeah, we got a
really
question
quick.
too, so let's.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's not about
Okay.
you. Yeah. Like the whole world.
So if I bring that down just above the peaks of those meters, that's usually a good starting point. You'll see a gain reduction there as well.
It's not about you.
I think at most it's done 5.4 dB of gain reduction. And right now we were right around -12.5 LUFs. So I need to bring that threshold up. Remember, these are negative numbers. So the smaller, you know, the lower the number, if we get to -8, -6, that's actually a lot louder. So if we want this to come down, we're going to bring that threshold up, and that should get us to -14. So we have a question?
No, question was rescinded. So
Okay.
yeah, we are at kind of a stopping point here.
Okay.
I will say one more thing. The one thing I love about the Pro limiter, the Avid Pro limiter, is that the ceiling is true peak aware. So if you're dealing for streaming, it actually understands true peaks and not just regular peaks. Talk about that later. All right. So thank you, everybody. I think that's about all the time we have for today. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about, well, now 7 plugins we thought that maybe you hadn't learned about, experienced, tried out. Remember that our audio production town hall is a monthly event. We ordinarily do that on the last Monday of each month. Keep an eye on Full Sail 1 for information about next month's town hall. And we would really, really, really like to thank all of the Live Pro students in this month's AV Tech class and their course director, John Kost. You guys have been fabulous. They do all of this work just for you, and we really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Good group, yep.
Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next month.